This is the second video where we're going to look at writing logarithmic products, quotients, and powers as sums and differences. And this is the problem we ended the last video with. So here's our next one. In this case, our argument has two operations. We have a power and a product. The first thing we're going to do is use property number 5 and write the product as a sum. We're then going to shift to property 7 and write the exponent as a factor. Now, looking at both terms, there's no other property that will move us forward, and so we're done. Here's another one. A good way to start this problem is to recognize again that there isn't any radical ideas here in the properties, and so it's best if we write square root x as x with an exponent of 1/2. Now we can use property 6, having to do with quotients, to write the quotient as a difference, and then in the first term the exponent can be written as a factor, and the second term can be simplified to 2. Here's another. First, we'd again use the quotient property to write the quotient as a difference. Next, log base 6 of 36 is 2, and it's best to rewrite the square root of x plus 1 as the quantity x plus 1 with an exponent of 1/2. Last, we can write the exponent of 1/2 as a factor, and we have 1/2 times log base 6 of the quantity x plus 1. Always keep in mind there is no distribution of a logarithm over a sum. How about this one? First, I'm going to write the square root as an exponent of 1/2. Next, the exponent of 1/2 can be written as a factor. Now, I'm going to use property 5 and write this product as a sum. You need to include parentheses because just like 1/2 was multiplying this entire factor, when we decide to rewrite the factor as a sum, we need to make sure that 1/2 is multiplying both terms. Next, log base 10 of 100 is 2. And then last, I'll distribute the 1/2. 1/2 times 2 will be 1, and 1/2 times log x will simply be the product 1/2 times log x. How about here? First, property 6 allows us to write the quotient as a difference. Then, both the exponent of 2 and 3 will be written as factors. And this is as simple as the expression can be written. Here's another. After using property 5 to rewrite the product as a sum, and then rewriting the square root of the quantity x squared plus 1 as the quantity x squared plus 1 with an exponent of 1/2, and bringing the 1/2 in front as a factor, I now have a sum which cannot be rewritten any further. Let's try a couple of challenging problems. See if you can get this one right. Step 1 would be to write the quotient as a difference. Next, I need to recognize that I can rewrite this first argument with an exponent of 1/2. And this second argument as a sum. That is, I have a product, x cubed times the quantity x plus 1 with an exponent of 4, and that can be rewritten as a sum. Now you have to be careful here, because just like you were subtracting this second term, you need to be subtracting the entire rewritten second term. Now what that implies is that this distribution needs to occur so that we have two subtractions. And then the last step would be to write all of the exponents as factors. And here's our last one. Now again, this one's a little difficult, especially with the numerator. Step 1 would be to write the exponent of 1/3 as a factor. Next, you need to recognize that the numerator of the fraction can be written in factored form. That's especially important because we're going to be using property 5 on the numerator, and we need it to be written as a product. Next, I'll use property 6 to rewrite the quotient as a difference, making sure in this case to use brackets to keep the numerator together. Now I'm going to use property 5 on this first term and write this exponent as a factor. Last, I'll distribute the 1/3 to all three terms. I'll have a factor of 1/3 here, and a factor of 2 times 1/3, or 2/3, here. And now we're done. Well, I hope this video has given you some practice with rewriting products, quotients, and powers as sums or differences.